Welcome to the Boss Mode podcast, where we discuss AI and the future of work. We're launching the Vanka Pre-Seed Fund with 100% autonomous, AI-driven investment decisioning. And some of the initial inspiration for this, of course, the macro trend around everything with AI leading to the replacement of a number of cognitive processes. But more specifically, very recently, the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, one of the largest in the world, $1.8 trillion, they stopped hiring people and they've actually reduced headcount substantially because AI was able to make better decisions, or certainly AI and humans were able to make better decisions than investment managers alone. And that extends a lot of what's been happening in terms of revenue-based financing with Stripe and other revenue-based financing companies that have been almost entirely autonomously making investments based upon revenue generation history.
Yeah, we're building Vanka because we believe that there will be more founders who will be less discouraged to move ahead because of the unblocking that AI represents. So that's the upside. So we thought, what can we do to accelerate interest in building a company? And we realized that you'll always need a little bit of money to get started. And we're not going to write massive checks, but we can do something that is aligned with our mission, which is to help solo founders get started. And we think that our ability to evaluate ideas and the fit between the founder and the idea and its likelihood to succeed is greater with substantial use of AI or complete use of AI than human biased processes. And that's why we want to test together. So that's why we're doing this. And that's why I'm excited to see if we can pull it off, which I think we have a good shot at.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the small checks, right? And yes, these are small pre-seed checks that we'll be issuing. But I don't think that's something to get too hung up on, because recently, Christine Tsai from 500 Global, in 500 Startups, their first investment in Korea was a startup that I'd founded back in 2010. So I had a chance to get to know Christine and Dave McClure and the entire team at 500, and they're fantastic. Christine recently published some content where she talked about how check sizes are getting smaller. A lot of founders don't need as much money because you can build with AI. You might be a single founder, you might be a very small group of founders. So you just don't need as much money anymore.
No, that's true. If you wanted to launch an app that solves a problem, you needed hundreds and thousands of dollars. Now you can make it with a couple of $1,000s. And that's part of our thesis for the whole company as well. So I think it's going to be super interesting. And I think the level of transparency and fairness that we can have in how we evaluate these potential investments will be really interesting. Our intention is to be of the build in public mindset that we would like to put online a lot of our interactions with the founders that we end up working directly with and investing in. And maybe that will help others too. We keep the flywheel turning and we give back where we got a lot of inspiration and help too. We see a lot of that on X too, build in public. And I think vibe coding has very good aspects. There are some fantasy aspects to it still as well. And I think we can help founders who are new to this to navigate as well. So whether it's the person we invested in or others seeing that process, I think it will be helpful for the whole Vanka ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea of build in public makes so much sense today, because it used to be that it was always product first and then you hand it off to marketing and marketing runs with it. But today, I think a founder has an obligation to build audience very early. And building the audience is a part of how you ensure that you have this feedback loop that becomes your flywheel to iterate your product very quickly and of course, drive revenue with certainly that initial audience of users that you've built an audience with.
So David, if you were a first-time founder, which you're certainly not because you've done a lot of entrepreneurship, including exits in your career, and you had a good idea, what would make you feel comfortable to talk about it more publicly, this build in public, versus the classic Silicon Valley cool thing to do, which is to start in stealth? Why do things in public?
I think you do things in public because you're short-circuiting, you're hijacking, you're completely circumventing the need to have these massive marketing launches. You look at a company like a Tesla even, and granted Tesla's massive, right? But Tesla doesn't spend money on marketing.
Neither
Tesla
did
doesn't need to
Google
do
at the
that.
time. Yeah, neither did Google
Yes.
at the time, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't need to because these guys have massive audience. They've got credibility. And it's not really just about the size of the audience, right? Credibility matters a ton as well. And you get that by talking about these ideas that you formed and testing them through conversation, much as you and I do here in this podcast.
Yeah, I think getting that somewhat real-time feedback and hopefully with some empathy and positivity, because it's hard, it's easy to criticize, it's hard to create. But I think the feedback loops also in terms of just getting to see the fruits of your ideas is so fast with AI now that it just makes sense to just embrace it and just go with it. I think that certainly should work better. The fear will be that your idea will be stolen by someone else. But I believe that usually the output of an idea that goes into a product is never the thing alone. It's always the founder's insight, the founder's kind of fingertip feel for maybe the customers, the type of customers or the problem or the solution. That has an ongoing value or has to have an ongoing value that will continue to go into the product. So if you have only an idea, your level of passion is limited and you just want to build this one thing and it's like fire and forget, it's unlikely that it's successful. It might be a Flappy Bird and it's like super successful and then they just decide to shut it down. It can be like a rocket like that and just a test. But I think for most founders, you have something that you believe in, which is an ongoing passion project. And with that, even if someone else will see what you built, you should be able to have an edge on an ongoing basis for all of these things that I mentioned.
Yeah, from product purist's perspective, you're absolutely right. But I'd add onto that, which makes this doubly true, that the benefit you gain from building in public around distribution capability, audience, is also important to consider. Product purist view, absolutely. The human founder has so much value to add, and if they don't commit to that over an extended period of time, then unless it's sheer luck, lightning striking, then you're going to end up Deadpooled. And the truth is, founders have so much value to add just because of who they are, their unique life experience, their unique philosophies. All of this plays into and is expressed of you here and here into the product.
I also think it's accountability and anti-procrastination tool to build in public.
Oh, yeah.
You're committed, right? It's like people uploading their workouts. They say that's really narcissistic, but I think a lot of people are not doing it because they are overly self-loving or exhibitionists. I think they're doing it because it's a way for them to stay accountable, to get some friendly, I wouldn't call it peer pressure, but some love from the people that actually care about them and encouragement. And I think fellow builders, I think will have a camaraderie. Hopefully it's that kind of craftsmanship. Maybe it's the new breed of Freemasonry. Well, you have the bricklayers and the builders and the carpenters, and they will all respect each other and learn from each other. And I sometimes see glimpses of that online in social media because it's a green playing field now with AI. It's so new and everyone is so liberated that there's no reason to experience this as super high competition or scarce audience, because it's not, right? It's completely open, which is very beautiful. And I don't think we've had that kind of environment for a while. And it's probably how writers and artists feel about each other. I actually don't know. Maybe they have really sharp elbows. I don't know. I don't think so. So I'm hoping it's going to get a little bit more like that culture. And I think Silicon Valley has been successful because of those informal networks of people who have been sharing ideas with each other. And I don't mean about the conferences where people go to brag, but like they've really been, I've seen this, like these networks of founders helping each other out, sometimes even when they have some level of competitive position and respect for each other's products. So yeah, build in public, fail in public, encourage each other in public, succeed in public, grow in public, and see what happens. And yes, there will be haters. It's easy to hate. It's hard to create. But I think most people will be able to see through. The negative people are mostly jealous because they're not doing anything themselves. And I think it's just something to ignore and focus on the people who are actually rooting for you.
I'd actually argue that the negative noise is actually part of what drives audience, because people love controversy, right? So having haters is actually, one, probably a sign that you're doing something right, because a lot of that, as you say, is driven from this jealousy. And what else are these guys doing?
On lots.
The idea of that kind of basement dweller, right? So having the haters, I think, could even be helpful. So I would not be discouraged by the haters that come from the process of building in public.
I agree with you. I just think those bad vibes are unfortunate. And I think US sports have a lot of hecklers. You don't see that in other countries as much. You see it in Europe for soccer, certainly, or football, which is the correct way to refer to it. But yeah, I saw this clip from Otani when he was playing the Dodgers game, and there was a opposing team fan who was sitting behind the batting box, basically yelling, "Oh, you're gonna miss, you're gonna miss." And then obviously he hit a home run. And then after he did his kind of little run around the diamond, he came back and he gave that heckler a fist bump. Hey, I made it. And I think being bigger than the haters is the way to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that there's even a way to transform, like a transmutation of that negative energy into something positive. Maybe that's part of, I imagine, Otani's routine in just not necessarily even just tuning it out, but just, hey, like letting it come in and releasing it and doing what you're there to do.
I think you're actually hitting on something that's super interesting, and it connects, if you want to be a little old school or historic about it. There's hermetic alchemic knowledge that talks about that the opposite poles of an energy makes it still connected. So let's say that you have a very angry customer. If the customer is very angry, it means that they still care. Same in relationships. If someone is really upset, it means that they still care. It's when they don't care that you have a complete disconnect. But if someone is angry, that's still an energy where they are really engaged on that straight line between loving the experience or absolutely hating it, but they're still engaged in that tension. If you're building something, or if you have a service and the business failed at something with a customer, that is such a moment of truth and opportunity where you can turn the angriest customer to the absolute biggest fan because they're so emotionally engaged. I think it's just a really interesting learning in life, how love and hate breakups. There was a lot of love, and then all of a sudden there's a ton of hate, and it's the same person, it's the same kind of almost emotion, it's the same cardinal playing in a sense. Anyways.
Yeah, and we're here to talk about the Vanka Pre-Seed Fund overall, but I think it is worthwhile and very interesting that we spend so much time on this build in public, because that idea of these people who are so passionate in hating, if they care so much that they're sending hate in your direction because of what you're building in public, part of what can help transform that energy into something positive could actually be the audience of people who are positively engaging with you. So you're not alone in that conversation with the heckler in the stands in some random basement in Poughkeepsie, right? You've got an audience of, maybe it's 5 people, maybe it's 1,000 people, but you've got an audience of people who care and are rooting for you, cheering for you. And that's part of what can help transform that negative energy. The Vanka Pre-Seed Fund. We have, of course, we've talked about how we're going to be making the decisions autonomously. So AI-based investment decisions, much as the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund is directionally doing, much as Stripe and other revenue-based financing providers are certainly already doing when it comes to looking at your revenue signals. We're talking about applying this automation to pre-seed financing, which historically has been a lot of pattern matching against, I think, a flawed set of characteristics. You've been in Silicon Valley for quite a while, John, quite prolifically successful in Silicon Valley, CEO of the US local entity for a publicly held company. You've been at Meta, you've been at Google, you've worked on massive projects, and you've also sold 2 companies to Google. Wonder, from your experience in Silicon Valley, what are the pattern matching, what is the set that is being pattern matched?
Yeah, I think in any investment, whether it's you're investing time or the potentiality of a partnership and the resources associated therewith or money, there's risk. And I think there's just a different risk appetite. And if you can de-risk using certain methods very efficiently, people are going to gravitate towards doing that. That's why we have heuristics or rules of thumb also in daily life. It's biological survival instinct that our brains and our lizard brains, I think, have been associated with survival with. What happens there is you go for things that you recognize that has kept you alive before. Okay, I ate those blueberries before. I didn't get a stomach ache and I survived until the next day. Okay, let's have some more blueberries. And that's also what brings people to tend to hire people that have similar backgrounds to themselves. And all ethnicities actually do that. It's not something that I think is something that's just been associated with Caucasians or otherwise. It's like everyone has, I've seen it in many teams and companies, and it's not necessarily in a bad intent. And I think that boys club thing has also been going on in investment, where it's, okay, that guy is an alumni from Stanford or Berkeley or Harvard or whatever you went to and whatever worked for you before in your previous investments. And it's very hard to break out of that mold. And it's a little similar to the Moneyball approach. If you saw that movie with Brad Pitt, where they would tend to spend money on the baseball players that had certain aspects that they knew would work out, and they are usually really expensive. It's like in art or any collectibles, it's like everyone wants to go for the same type of thing that's on vogue right now, and then they get artificially inflated. And honestly, so for investments as well, I think what I'm hoping with our automated approach is that we will be Brad Pitt or Moneyball, maybe you or me, I don't know, we can debate that, but neither probably, but anyways. And we will find, hopefully, these founders that will be super successful, and only thanks to a complete removal between ourselves and that kind of heuristical bias, or even based on our experience, right? Because we're all imperfect in that way. So it's going to be super interesting to see how the prompted, and we will put our own structure around what facets we think are, what dimensions might be important, but the actual evaluation will be very neutral and fair, if there's such a thing as fair in life. Hard to say. It'll be a new approach, and I think it can be really interesting. And the results we'll share, whether we are successful or not. That's our commitment. So we'll put ourselves on the line there, but we'll certainly learn something, and I have a hunch that we might be successful.
The ability for us to do pattern matching as humans, I think humans are fantastic pattern matching machines, right? There's a limited set of parameters that we're able to hold in our minds over the course of a day as we're making investment decisions, right? Or over the course of a year as we're making investment decisions. And oftentimes, even amongst that limited set of parameters that we're pattern matching against, oftentimes we don't know that those are the parameters. Like, they're not a part of the conscious decision making. It's just there, and we haven't thought rationally about why they're there. And I think we've evolved beyond that as a species. And part of that evolution is that we're able to offload some of this compute, which used to always be here and in here. And it's just become such a massive amount of compute for us to have to run through day in, day out, because society has become a lot more complex, and there's so much more interrelation. The web is more complex today, that I think it's necessary for us to offload some of the compute, let the machines do their work so that we can be more human with each other.
Yeah, I agree. And the human aspect is we are dumping our knowledge into ontology of what dimensions we think are relevant for success for a founder based on our multi-decade experience. And we're combining that with the free-form capabilities of LLMs to then churn through these facts broadly, including market viability research, all of the things that we actually do in the Vanka platform already to help founders evaluate their own businesses. We're just going to apply that and extend that further.
How do you see founders taking a small check? So we're looking at doing a $20,000 investment, half of which is cash, another half is in-kind. And in-kind means that money can be spent in platform with Vanka. And that's tremendously useful to you as a business owner, because in-platform spend is really about having agentic AI run processes for you and your startup that otherwise humans would have done. And these are processes that probably would have cost you thousands of dollars per month, certainly, tens of thousands of dollars over the course of a year. So I think in-platform $10,000 is actually highly valuable. And the $10,000 cash, I think, is also, given what's happening with AI in startups, it's also highly impactful. But how do you think that $10,000 in cash can be impactfully spent by an AI founder, an AI native founder?
I think the value is the money. The value is also hopefully the confidence and the boost. I know how I would feel or how I've felt when investors have decided that, yeah, it makes sense. Let's invest in Vanka or let's invest in other companies that I've been part of. But especially now the last year, getting that understanding of what we're trying to build and alignment in believing that we are the team that can do it and the timing is right, because a lot of smart people are too early. I don't think we are too early at all. I feel like we are actually right on time and certainly not too late. So I think for any founder to get that check, it's like a trophy in a sense as well. I think the money can be well spent. Again, I think 10,000 is the new 100,000 when it comes to raising your initial pre-seed in terms of the things that you can get done. I would spend most of it on tokens. We've earmarked half of it to be spent with Vanka and Vanka tokens in a sense. And the other half you can spend with other platforms. Again, the Vanka idea is to be the platform for the planning of a business, pressure testing your idea, getting a proper structure around your technical strategy and approach. And then you'll go build. You'll go build with a partner company that does these things, help build a contractor, or you can go to the vibe coding platforms and build your gizmo if you need a gizmo. And then the other half, that will be outside of Vanka, although will certainly help with the payload that you will want to bring to either the dev shop or that vibe coding platform. And then the other half, the other kind of bookend in the sense of starting the planning, building on the vibe coding platforms, and then running the business. It's the running of the business that we want to help with Vanka as well. Creators should remain creative, and there are a lot of midnight oil burns on things that will make you sweat and cry, but that aren't really the creative side of things. That doesn't really make a huge difference. It's slightly more generic work, like registering your company or the domains, or even some parts are very mechanical customer support, even though customer support will always be a moment of truth and important. But there are a lot of things that we are automating that I think really helps these solo founders. So earmarking half of that investment for use of the Vanka platform. Sure, it's self-serving for us, but we really believe that our platform can make a difference.
Absolutely. And if I bring it back to that initial cash component and how that ties in to some of the things that founders are doing inside of the Vanka platform, I believe that founders, exactly as you described, will be able to use the cash component towards tokens for vibe coding, for example. I believe that founders with that cash component will be able to put that towards a part of what it costs to hire a contractor to start working on your project as well. Say you're a non-technical founder and vibe coding is a little bit out of reach for you. What if you were able to bring in a technical co-founder or a technical first hire as a contractor for a month to help get you up to speed in vibe coding? This is tremendously valuable. Or what if you were able to hire somebody offshore to build your entire proof of concept? I think that these are things that should not block a founder from making progress. And cash is necessary, but you're right. $10,000 is the new 100K pre-seed check.
I really think so. I think, again, getting a concept up and running, whether it's you need a designer or you need it can be any craft really, depending on what you're trying to build. Pulling that person, it could be a designer, it could be an electrical engineer, who knows? That then will be the stepping stone probably to get your next investment round or getting that proof of concept out there and getting customer feedback or potential customer feedback. So yeah, hopefully it becomes a big unlock. It'll be interesting how we will be able to instruct the system to evaluate whether we should give the evaluation a little hint that it's useful to bias slightly towards founders who could really use the 10,000 to get them over that hump, or 20, including the Vanka in kind part. Or
yeah, the use of funds.
Neutral. Yeah, I'm making this a working session now, but we should think about that.
Vanka Pre-Seed Fund, the autonomous decisioning is something that will necessarily evolve over time. And we're in alpha stage, right? So we're going to start with 3 investments, one in November, one in December, and one in January. This is something that we're going to move very fast on. And after the first 3, we're going to reevaluate, see what needs to be fine-tuned. How do we design a system?
See what we're doing? We're launching this when all the VCs are usually away because it's Thanksgiving. And as we know, in Silicon Valley, nothing happens after Thanksgiving. And usually they come back really late in January because they're away skiing in Niseko or something. This is perfect timing, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're
You
doing,
can ask
I love
family
that this is a
members
working session.
yeah, and they can ask family members for good hints during these Thanksgiving dinners too.
But on the working session part, I love that we're walking the walk, because we talk about build in public, right? So the Vanka Pre-Seed Fund, in a way, is being built in public right here, right now, on this call.
Yeah, I guess we're really dog fooding our own dog food. That's great. Let's see how it works. It's okay. You can write angry comments, read them, but try to see what we're trying to do here. We're actually trying to help founders. And when I say founders, I'm hoping for this like new breed of founders, which have never started a company before and have worked well in an industry. They really understand their industry, or they have this like absolute passion about their hobby. Maybe it could be like repairing violins or cooking a certain type of salt caramel. It can be anything. But they would never think of starting their own business because of their overhead. And our job with Vanka is to be the business operating system where we remove the overhead. And you can always go back and see the scaffolding of what you've planned to build, whether it's on the technical side or in terms of the brand or the user journey and all of these things that matter. And you don't have to read a bunch of 500-page books or take expensive courses online. We're just going to help handhold you through this process, even if you're a first-time builder. And I really think it's important to do that process, not just go drop it directly into a prompt window where you're trying to build an app or a web page from scratch. It'll get costly really quickly, and it lacks proper planning.
The way that you describe the overhead, I think, bears discussing, and I'll come to that in just a moment. Vanka is starting with helping our founders tremendously with the strategy and the planning, right? And it's with this initial set of strategy and planning docs that founders are able to then apply for the Vanka Pre-Seed program, which is 100% autonomous AI-driven investment decisioning. And then they're able to go and build in public, right? They're able to build with vibe coding, and we scaffold your GitHub repository so you can do that. But hey, maybe that's intimidating for you because you're less technical. Then you can work with our partners in Eastern Europe who can help build your product. Or maybe you find somebody else near you that's able to help you vibe code or otherwise build your product. And the Vanka Pre-Seed funds can be used certainly towards that. And then after that, you've got a proof of concept, right? You've been building in public, so you've got a bit of an audience. It could be 10 people, could be 100 people, or thousands. It'll vary. But whatever that scale is, it matters because those are people that you've been engaging with over time as you built in public. Then now you are operating. And the thing about operating a business is overhead, right? Let's unpack overhead for a moment. What is overhead for this man or woman who's running a business? Your overhead is cognitively, these are things, you've got a bunch of things that you have to think about, right, as a business owner. Hundreds of things that are vying for your attention in any given moment. How do you find clarity and focus your attention on what matters most? And part of that is if you let, say for example, your bookkeeping, if you let that go by, you just ignore it for a little while. It's not terribly consequential for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months, but then it starts to snowball. And then it becomes highly consequential, and then the house is on fire, right? Then it becomes urgent. So getting rid of that in many ways, automating it away, is really important so that you can remain cognitively dialed in to what truly matters as a founder. So I think the cognitive dimension of overhead, so cognitive overhead matters a ton. Financial overhead matters a ton. How can you streamline the cost of doing it so much? Just pack it down into what is truly essential and leverage the best technologies to, instead of spending thousands of dollars a month on this non-mission critical, like true value creation work stream, how can you do that instead of for hundreds or thousands, how can you do it for pennies or dollars? That matters a lot. So cognitive and financial are two parameters that really need to be considered for overhead.
Yeah, no, I agree. The cognitive load of having all these open loops, and it's even worse because you don't even know what you don't know if you're totally new to building a business. And it's okay to find out as you go, but if we can have a structure around the things that are typically table stakes or things that you just have to do if you're building a business, and a roadmap includes proper stretching across real world businesses, online businesses. I think that really can help people spend the energy where it will have the best bang for the buck, truly. And honestly, I think it will lead to more happiness. And I think a happy founder, even though not every day is going to be happy, but hopefully every day will be meaningful, is probably a founder that will be able to be more resilient through the twists and turns of building a successful business. So Vanka's whole mission is to just make this process happier and easier so that you don't have to spend too much energy on these open loops that often you don't even know what they are. They just occur. And that journey of discovering, fumbling in the dark, okay, that's okay, but maybe you don't have to do that on things like FinOps or getting your bank account set up and linking that to your EIN number and getting that domain registered and the hosting and this and that. So we're going to help out with that with a proper team, AI agent team, and some level of dashboard. It'll be really fun to, I think, get founders up and running much more quickly than has ever been possible before. And we could have ended there, but I think we felt that we can go further. We can see if we can fund a founder with their pre-seed seed once per month. And also I think there's going to be a lot of learning between everyone participating. We'll see how we'll set up that community between participating founders. And since this is a working building in public session, we need to figure out whether we should have only the invested founders as part of that community, or everyone who's applied who opts in, maybe we should just have them part of the process as well, because they're certainly committed people at that point, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally am looking forward to spending time with founders inside of the Vanka ecosystem. Founders that are inside of the Vanka ecosystem, that are building in public, that are, and for some of them, being funded by Vanka. I'd love to be an informal partner of sorts, right? Somebody that you can talk to. And I think that setting up some office hours is something that I'm certainly looking forward to doing with founders that are inside the Vanka ecosystem. And absolutely, yes, certainly pre-seed, Vanka pre-seed applicants, I'd love to have them inside of a Discord channel. Now, alpha stage of this fund, again, one per month over the course of 3 months, and then we're going to fine tune. After that, aspirationally, right? And directionally, what are we trending towards? The great thing about having autonomous investment decisions is that we can hit scale. And you look at the number of investments a fund is able to make really makes a big difference in the amount of intelligence it has, right? Because there's more data to look at. So directionally, where I'd love to go, certainly what's possible, is over time, being able to make one a month even. And why stop there? At some point, it becomes possible to even do one a day. And again, this is all aspirational, and we need to figure out a lot of things. I am, yeah, absolutely. Because if we can break the friction, if we can just chip away at the friction and scrape it away, I think that money will flow more intelligently to the right places. Also, a lot more.
If we can participate early in being supportive, and the data that we'll have could put us in a position to be very helpful for founders, yes, but also we get to participate. So yeah, of course it's interesting. I spent time yesterday with one of our Vanka founders, and really smart guy, very young. And every time, I've seen him a couple of times, and every time I see him, he has a new idea, and the idea is really usually very good. And I think, I'm curious, we're going to see this Pareto principle play through, where we're going to have a small set of founders that have a lot of very good ideas that score very highly, because that's just how their brains work, or how their spirits work, like that. They just have that spark or sparkle. My little pony, my little pony. And whether the AI and what we're building with Vanka will be so successful at helping founders build a business that the old adage, you want someone who's only focused on this one thing, will not ring through. But you can have someone who's building 3 different things at the same time, and it's a bit of a hedge, and we might have been invested in all 3 of them because they were all like really darn good ideas, and they can still be successful. I just think a lot of things that we have taken for granted will change, and I'm hoping that the model and the ontology in combination with the models will help us harvest that really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. For folks who are interested in applying for the Vanka Pre-Seed Fund, here's what you need to do. 1, use Vanka, right? Use Vanka to think through your idea, address the strategy, have a strategy partner. Do your planning inside of Vanka, right? AI Vanka will greatly accelerate your ability to do your strategy and your planning. And then that's going to give you a lot of what you need in order to apply for the Vanka Pre-Seed Fund. Just send us your project ID. There's a form at vanka.ai/preseed. Fill out that form. There's a place for you to, it's super short. It'll take you, I think, like 30 seconds to do, right? So fill out the form. You're also going to need to record a pitch video and just post that to social. Include the link to that social post in the form, and then we'll autonomously review the investment opportunity. And it will be a 100% AI decision on who to invest in each month. So vanka.ai/preseed will tell you everything you need to know, walk you through the details, which are tremendously simple. You're not going to need to have pre-established connections, this massive network. And maybe you do, right? But the thing is, your network should not be the defining characteristic of you. Your creativity, your ability to build, and I think that even with a great network, these are the things that, as a founder, become much more valuable to you, and I think they should be much more important to you. And the irony is, I think that will ultimately serve you in terms of building great relationships with the people in your network.
Yeah, no shadow on having good friends or connections. It's all good. I think it's a more level playing field where people who have not had maybe the fortitude for the overhead of mingling with people, doing small talk to network, or we're all different, right? And we're all emotionally different, psychographically different. And I just think there's a big latent pool of people with absolutely insanely good ideas that will now finally be enabled by AI, and we want to tap into that. But yeah, we can work with the old school founders as well. That's all good, and they will also be accelerated by AI.